Welcome to the BA Podcast. My name is Marlon Mueller. I'm with Your Wealth Resource, and today I have with me Bob Gilpatrick.
Hi, Marley.
Hi, Bob. Tell me a little bit about yourself, Bob, just real quick for the audience.
Yeah, sure. So I'm the founder and president of the Boomers Forever Young company, and we do a couple of things. One is we sell holistic nutrition products, and secondly, we create content and advise people on matters of stress, because we always say you can take the best nutrition in the world, but if you're under stress, you're probably still going to be sick. And so for about the last 15 years, under Boomers Forever Young, that's what we've been doing. Prior to that, I was a counselor and therapist of many different kinds, going all the way back, over 50 years.
Well, for me, I'm not only a customer of yours because I use your product line, but I also know from knowing you for the last 6 years plus that you just have a lot of knowledge in this field. And so because of that and my trust in you, I'm like, I want to do this podcast and discuss these techniques. And one of the reasons too is some of the people that I know even personally are just dealing with a lot of stress. I'm more of a calm person, and I just see that stress is just almost like ruins their life in a sense, that it's not only a health issue, but it's a mind issue and so forth. And you started discussing some techniques, and you actually, if we can get some of those, one of the first techniques you were discussing, what would that be?
It's a technique called havening, and
Okay.
havening kind of stands for finding a safe haven. And so this was created by a medical doctor, Dr. Rudin, who was counseling people who were addicted to alcohol and drugs. And they would get very stressed after the first couple of days coming to the clinic, and they would leave because of their anxiety. So he created havening to help them deal with the issues from their life that were causing that anxiety.
Oh.
And so there's something magical with havening, where if you are rubbing your hands together, like in a prayer formation, and you rub your arms a little bit, and you can even rub your face, but quite honestly, just rubbing your hands together works. And then you use a certain phrase based on whatever the issue is that you're dealing with. So if you are still being triggered from things that happened to you when you were young, say you had some type of a traumatic experience in your family, whether it was one of your parents or a sibling, and it was still creating problems with your current relationships. It's kind of like you would get triggered, right? Well, there's an easy way now to eliminate that trigger and make it so you have freedom to pursue your relationships without the past trauma.
Oh.
And so we'll just make something up and show people. You would rub your hands together and say something like this: even though up until now I thought I had to continue to have this trauma and the issues it's causing in my life today, I completely love and accept myself anyway. And I'm so grateful now that I realize that trauma from the past regarding my mother is gone, and today is a brand new day, and I'm living at complete peace. And then finishing a sentence like that, you would then cross your hands over your heart and take a sharp breath in, and then drop your hands and your head down and sit quietly with your palms up, and you'll come a peaceful feeling comes across you. And the reason you're doing the heart technique is you're creating a surge of oxytocin, which is your molecule of love and compassion, and it literally shoots into your brain from your heart muscle. And now you have a paired association between this loving, peaceful feeling and the affirmation you just made. So it becomes visceral or kinesthetic. All right. And it literally changes the brain waves in your amygdala from a beta wave to a delta wave. And in delta, the neurochemistry of that trauma won't occur. The calcium ion transfer won't occur in the presence of delta waves. And so normally you're in beta, and now you're training your amygdala in regard to that trauma to go into delta. And most of the time it works with just one shot. If you
Wow.
have to redo it, if it still triggers you, and then you can use that technique to look at everything that's gone on in your life that might be holding you back, causing you stress, anxiety. You can do havening on all of those things.
Wow.
Yeah.
I just noticed when I was doing the rubbing the hands, as you were talking, you could feel like a sensation going through my body, just having that rubbing back and forth.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Yeah. And then another technique which is very similar is called the emotional freedom technique, or EFT. And this came about it was about 25 years ago, I would say, when Gary Craig first released the information about EFT to the world. It had been created years prior to that by a psychiatrist in California, but he never told anybody about it because it was his proprietary thing. But later in his life, he told Gary Craig how to do it and what it was. And then Gary created an institute to teach people how to do this technique. And he was teaching therapists, right? But what I do is I teach people how to do it for themselves so that they don't need a therapist. And that's where people can see, on my website, the boomerboost.com website, you can watch a half-hour video about havening, and you can watch 2 hours of an interview with a havening expert that I interviewed. And then there's 5 different videos on the emotional freedom technique. So the emotional freedom technique is also called tapping. And so tapping is tapping on your fingertips. So if you take, say, the middle finger of your right hand and tap on the side of the nail about 5 times on each of your fingers and your thumb, and then with finishing that, you can tap on your karate chop point. That's what they call it, like this. And what this is doing is it's activating your meridian system. And some people have gone for acupuncture before, and they'll put a needle in your wrist and one in your ear, and they're trying to free up the flow of the chi that's gotten blocked for some reason. Right? Well, that chi also flows into your brain. And when you begin tapping on your fingertips, and some people also tap spots on their face, but I don't teach that because people can't remember it.
Oh.
Now, what happens when you tap is your meridian system wakes up and it goes, okay, I've got a meridian powering a particular belief they're going to talk about, and now we're going to pull it out of that belief and plug it into the new one. And so if you have a belief structure that we call awfulizing, well, whenever somebody says something like that to me, that's just awful, and I'm going to be really angry about that. Okay. Say it might be something about the way you dress, or how tall or short you are, or if you are overweight or underweight, and you're very sensitive about it, and you believe that if anybody ever notices that, or God forbid comments on it, that's awful, and now I'm going to be upset. Right? And it becomes subconscious after a while. So you would do tapping for something like that. Say we'll use the issue of weight. If somebody is overweight, which about almost half the population in the United States is. So this can help a lot of people. So you tap on your fingertips and you would say something like this. Even though up until now, I thought I had to continue to be upset about my weight, especially anytime somebody noticed or said something about it, I completely love and accept myself anyway. And I'm so grateful now that I realize I am not my physical body. I am not my weight. I am immortal consciousness, and I'm feeling at complete peace. Cross your hands on your heart and breathe in. Drop your hands and your chin down and breathe out. And now you've just effectively pulled the thread of chi out of the first belief about your weight and plugged it into the new belief. And all of a sudden, you're going to start to feel more relaxed. You'll notice that after doing tapping, you start to speak more slowly, and you're more engaged and focused with the person in front of you, because that constant background anxiety about being overweight is affecting the whole way that you communicate and show up for people. You will literally change the pulses of electromagnetism that are coming off of your heart muscle and coming off your brain by doing tapping. And people will feel more comfortable around you because they won't sense your tension. Right? So it's
So
very
is this
valuable.
done just like when that thought comes in, you just do the tap?
You can use it as therapy. You can say, okay, I'm tired of having these worries about being overweight. I'm going to do some tapping on that. I'm tired of having the belief that money's the root of all evil, so I'm going to do some tapping on that. Whatever beliefs you find yourself with that you wish were somehow different. This is the way to change it instantaneously instead of meditating in a cave for 20 years. Okay. This is instant therapy. Okay. And sometimes it's life-saving. And it works very well for people with depression and anxiety. It works really well with children, especially children that have test anxiety. And we actually made a whole separate animated video for children that's on your website. It's on a separate website. It's called School Test Prep. Schooltestprep.com. And it's a video teaching children how to use tapping for test anxiety. And about a third of the children in the United States have test anxiety that lowers their scores on the test by about 20%.
Wow.
And so very effective technique that Gary Craig kind of brought to the world for us. But there's also another technique that was invented by the HeartMath Institute. HeartMath, M-A-T-H.
Okay.
And they've been in business over 30 years, and they now have a miniaturized device that they call Inner Balance. And so this device is a clip that you put onto your earlobe, and it has a wire that comes out to a transponder that plugs into your cell phone. And it's essentially an eavesdropping technique on your heart rate variability. And people's heart rate variability tends to be very steady and stable when they're under stress. And when they're not, you end up with more variability, and it's very healthy for you. And so when you put this Inner Balance device on, your cell phone has an app that has a circle with squares around the outside of the circle. And the circle will shrink and expand based on the number of seconds you tell it to, and you sync your breath to it. So you breathe in for 5 seconds, out for 5 seconds, and you watch that circle shrink and expand, and you sync your breath to it. And then you begin thinking about what you're grateful for. All right. So they say the average person in the United States is of the belief that things are not okay 95% of the time.
Wow.
And so you want to have a pattern interrupt for that. And the opposite of that thought is, what are you grateful for? And so you start thinking of what you're grateful for, and you might think of your wife or your husband, and you might start thinking while you're watching the circle and syncing your breath. You might say, I'm really grateful for my wife because she's so kind and loving towards little children, and I just really admire that about her. And then it's like, okay, well, what else? Well, I'm really grateful for my wife because whenever we work on a project together, she's very supportive and generative, and she encourages me. And then you keep on thinking for as long as you can. They say the longer you linger in gratitude, the more you draw your new life to you. And so your new life is a life without that constant thought that things are not okay. And so you practice this every day with your Inner Balance device. It costs like $150, and it comes with a whole app of tremendous amount of information about mental health and how to use that device.
Interesting.
So there's a video about Inner Balance, a half-hour video on our website if people want to learn more about it, or go to the HeartMath.com site and get your Inner Balance device.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's 3 techniques.
Yeah. So another really great one that works for numerous different things is called the Ultimate Mind Calming Exercise. Now, originally this was what was called a biocalisthenic and was inspired, by Alexander Lowen, and then the people that created these psychocalisthenics, so to speak, and they were originally called head circles. So what I did was I used some additional techniques that I added to this original head circles and made it so that it was more effective.
Okay.
And the way that it works is you're signaling your body and your mind and your spirit, that you're letting go of your head and you're entering into your heart. And so a head circle starts with breathing out all of your air and then breathing in while you rotate your head to the top. And then you're going to breathe out while you rotate to the bottom. And then you're going to gently let your chin swing back and forth, which says, I'm letting go of my head. Then you're going to enter into your heart with that same gentle push on your heart. So it would look like this. Right. So this will create what they call a state of no mind, where all your thoughts are going to stop when you do this. Right?
How many times do you have to do that?
You don't want to do it more than twice when you first start, because you'll get very lightheaded. This is a very powerful technique, and usually just one head circle will make your mind stop.
Wow.
Right. Now, you can do whatever you want in that space. You can just sit quietly and with no intention at all, or just want to give your brain a break from all the restless scanning, right? And so the other thing that I say to people, because a lot of times people get locked in their mind, and so now they're stressed because they're thinking all the time of what should be, what shouldn't be. And this gives you a chance to elevate to what we call a meta position, which is a place above, where you become the watcher or you become the thinker that's separate from thought. And when you do that head circle, you can preload a question, because your mind's going to be blank. So you want to kind of already have a question ready. So once you do the head circle and you're sitting quietly, you can ask yourself this: who is it that's doing these head circles? Right? Now, that question, because there's no thought, is going to give you information from your next level up of consciousness. Right? The place that the meditators, the place that Jesus Christ used to go to every morning in order to be filled with the Holy Spirit for his jam-packed day of healing and teaching. Right? And so once you ask that question, just sit quietly and don't expect to hear an answer, but expect a feeling. And then just enjoy the fact that you've elevated, that you're above for that moment. And if you want to, you can do another head circle and then ask the question, who is it that's asking who is it that's doing these head circles? And now just, again, sit quietly, and you might begin to envision some type of a hierarchy, a ladder or a mountain to climb. And your essence is beginning to elevate layers of consciousness upward, where you can be in a very, very peaceful, very creative way, and you're no longer trapped with your mind. You are the master of your mind, and you can watch your mind. And when you see disturbing thoughts come in or disturbing emotions, that's just your mind, because with a simple head circle, you can be above it. And you can look down and be very resourceful in what you might need to do in order to proceed on without a major disturbance.
Wow.
Yeah. So another one is
so this that's 4. So now you're gonna you have a 5th one. Then.
Yeah. So the other one we like to help people with is called NVC, or nonviolent communication, also called compassionate communication. And Marshall Rosenberg wrote that book called Nonviolent Communication, and it's a technique to help people interact with others from a place of feelings and emotions, as opposed to thoughts, right? So a lot of times when people are trying to listen to somebody, they tend to want to finish their sentence. They've already got their reply kind of postured, and they're not really listening, but they're doing their best, right? But if you switch from that type of listening to saying, I wonder how Marlon is feeling about this. And Might be that something disturbing had happened to you the day before that you were telling me about. And instead of quickly offering a suggestion, I'm going to guess as to how you're feeling, right? So I would say, wow, it seems like you're feeling disappointed with yourself about what just happened. And the answer might come back, well, no, I'm not feeling disappointed. I just really wish that hadn't happened. And I'm feeling a little anxious about the fact that I, let that happen. And, I'm a little worried that my son is, wondering why I did that, right? And so
you're kind of just probing.
And so you would reply back to me how you're really feeling, because I've just made a guess, and I might have guessed right, and you would then the next part of this, and so there's an acronym for nonviolent communication that we call OFNR, OFNR. And so, and so the O is about observing and listening without any judgment or trying to finish sentences. And the F is for feelings. And so after you've engaged in regard to feelings, you want to move on to the N, which is needs. And so you can again guess, and you say, oh, gee, Marlon, it seems to me like maybe you need this, right? Maybe you need me to help you, and maybe we could speak to your son together, right? And now that might not be what you need, and so you would come back and say, well, no, that's not it, but I think maybe you could help me by doing this. I feel like I need this instead, right? And so now you've gotten to the need part, and then the last part, the R, is for request. And so you want a request to be reasonable, and you want it to be respectful. And so you might say, or if I'm leading the conversation, I would say, is there anything you want to request from me? Or if I have something I want to request from you, I'd say, well, let me request this, because I don't have time right now to talk to your son, but I'd like to request maybe after 2:00. Okay. Or you might say, well, I don't really need you to help me talk to my son, but I would like to request that you help me so that type of thing never happens again. Would you help me with that? Right. And so now we've gone through the observation, the feeling, the need, the request, and it's a very different type of communication than the typical back and forth mind stuff banter that people typically engage in.
Wow. Yep. So you just gave us 5 great techniques, and all of them can be accessed on your website on boomersboost.com.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome.
You can use the search bar. You can type in nonviolent communication. You can type in the emotional freedom technique or havening or HeartMath, and they'll all pop. The videos will pop up. So you'll see a video similar to this one, but it's going to be the whole video will be about that specific
of one of those 5 different.
And then
techniques.
EFT, we have actually 5 separate videos on the emotional freedom technique. We teach the history of it, where it came from, and then how to do it. And then there's specific ones, tapping for stress, tapping for weight loss, tapping for your immune system, are separate ones. So those are some of the most common things that people use tapping for.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Board of Advisors. Please take a minute to comment, subscribe, find us on social media, and remember, when you get in the right room, anything is possible.